Most people think you need big fruit trees to feed a family. They clear land, wait 5 to 7 years, climb ladders, fight pests, and still end up with one harvest a year. But what if I told you that some tiny bushes you can plant in your yard, along a fence, or even beside your house, can quietly outproduce fruit trees again and again? These are not hype plants. These are heavy producers that fruit early, fruit often, and don't ask for much space. Once you understand how they work, you'll never look at fruit trees the same way again. Welcome back to Daily Plant Life, the channel where we focus on plants that actually earn their space and feed you consistently, not just look good in the yard. If you're new here, this channel is all about practical growing. Plants that give back more than they take. The truth is, food security doesn't come from big trees alone. It comes from smart systems, compact plants, and crops that produce again and again without drama. That's why in today's video, we're breaking down tiny bushes that quietly outperform fruit trees and keep your kitchen stocked year after year. Let's get into it. Plant number 1, Goji Berry. Goji Berry looks small and unimpressive when you first plant it, and that's exactly why most people underestimate it. But once established, this bush becomes a non-stop food machine. It doesn't wait years to perform. It settles in, spreads gently, and starts producing berries again and again through the growing season. While fruit trees give you one big harvest and then go silent, Goji keeps producing in waves, small harvests that add up to massive yields over time. What makes Goji Berry special is not just quantity, but efficiency. The bush stays relatively compact, meaning all the energy goes into berry production instead of tall wood and thick trunks. You don't need ladders. You don't need heavy pruning skills. You walk up, pick berries, and walk away. Over a season, a single mature bush can outproduce the usable fruit from a young fruit tree, especially when you consider how early Goji starts bearing. Another hidden advantage is resilience. Goji berries tolerate heat, cold, drought, and poor soil far better than most fruit trees. While trees struggle, Goji adapts. That means fewer losses, less stress, and more reliable food. For backyard growers, this reliability matters more than size. A plant that produces every year beats a tree that fails every other year. Then there's versatility. Goji berries can be eaten fresh, dried, blended, or stored long-term. You're not racing against spoilage like you are with many fruits. This turns a simple bush into a food security plant. Small footprint, long harvest window, minimal care, and that's how a tiny bush quietly beats a fruit tree. Plant number 2, Honeyberry. Honeyberry is one of the most unfairly productive bushes you can grow, especially in cooler climates. This plant fruits extremely early, often before strawberries, before blueberries, and long before fruit trees even wake up. While trees are still pushing leaves, honeyberry is already feeding you. That timing alone gives it a massive advantage. The bush itself stays compact, dense, and focused on fruiting. Instead of putting energy into height, it channels growth into heavy berry clusters. Once established, honeyberry produces consistently year after year with almost no drama, no complicated pruning schedules, no waiting half a decade for payoff. You plant it, you wait briefly, and then it starts delivering. Another reason honeyberry outperforms fruit trees is reliability. Late frosts destroy blossoms on fruit trees every year, wiping out entire harvests overnight. Honeyberry flowers are cold hardy and unfazed by frost. That means when trees fail, honeyberry still produces. Over 10 years, that consistency results in far more total food than many trees can manage. And finally, honeyberry wins on effort to reward ratio. Harvesting is fast, easy, and efficient. You're not dealing with tall branches or fragile fruit. You harvest quickly and move on. When you add up early fruiting, frost resistance, dense yields, and low maintenance, it becomes clear why a small honeyberry bush can quietly outperform a fruit tree over time. Plant number 3, Nanking cherry. Nanking cherry is one of those plants that completely rewrites what people think fruit production should look like. Instead of growing tall, fragile, and slow like most cherry trees, this plant stays compact, bushy, and incredibly productive. It doesn't waste energy building height just to look impressive. It puts its effort into one thing, feeding you, And it does that far earlier than almost any fruit tree ever will. One of the biggest advantages of Nanking cherry is how fast it starts producing. While traditional fruit trees can take years before giving you anything meaningful, Nanking cherry often begins fruiting quickly once established. That early production matters more than people realize. When a plant feeds you sooner, it earns trust. And over time, those early harvests stack up into serious total yield. Another reason this bush quietly beats fruit trees is resilience. Nanking cherry is tough. It handles cold, poor soil, wind, and neglect far better than most trees. Late frosts that wipe out tree blossoms barely slow it down. While fruit trees fail unpredictably, this bush keeps showing up every season. Over 10 or 15 years, that reliability alone results in more total food than many trees ever deliver. Harvesting is also simpler and more efficient. No ladders, no broken branches, no fragile fruit high above your head. You harvest at chest level quickly and easily. When you combine early fruiting, compact size, heavy yields, and low maintenance, Nanking cherry becomes the kind of plant that quietly outperforms trees without ever asking for attention. Plant number 4, hazelnut. Hazelnut is where the conversation shifts from fruit to serious calorie production. Most fruit trees give you sugar and water. Hazelnuts give you dense energy, fats, protein, and long-term storage food. And unlike nut trees that grow massive and slow, bush-form hazelnuts stay compact and manageable while producing heavily year after year. What makes hazelnut special is how efficient it is with space. Instead of one tall trunk, you get multiple stems producing nuts close to the ground. That means more productive surface area and less space. You can plant them as hedges, borders, or windbreaks and still harvest serious amounts of food. Fruit trees take up space vertically and horizontally. Hazelnuts use space intelligently. Another overlooked advantage is timing. Hazelnuts often produce earlier than most nut trees and do so consistently. There's no long waiting period followed by disappointment. Once established, they settle into a rhythm and keep producing. And because nuts store exceptionally well, you're not racing against spoilage like you are with fruit. One harvest can feed you for months. Hazelnuts also change how you think about food security. Fruit trees are seasonal. Hazelnuts are strategic. They give you food you can store, trade, and rely on when nothing else is producing. When you compare years of steady nut harvest to the occasional fruit tree success, it becomes clear why a low, bushy hazelnut can outperform towering trees in real-world usefulness. Plant number 5, blueberry. Blueberry is one of the most deceptive plants you can grow because people see it everywhere and assume it's ordinary. But when you actually grow blueberries yourself, especially multiple bushes, you realize how unfairly productive they are compared to fruit trees. A well-established blueberry bush doesn't give you one dramatic harvest and disappear. It gives you steady, reliable production year after year, often increasing as the plant matures. What really separates blueberries from fruit trees is consistency. Fruit trees are famous for on years and off years, where one season is great and the next is disappointing. Blueberries don't play that game. Once they settle in, they produce dependably. That reliability means over 10 years, the total amount of fruit you harvest from a few bushes can easily surpass what you'd get from a single tree that only performs occasionally. Blueberries also win on manageability. They stay compact, respond well to pruning, and keep fruit within easy reach. No ladders, no broken branches, no fruit falling and bruising on the ground. Harvesting blueberries is calm, fast, and efficient. You can pick a little every day or harvest heavily when they peak, and the plant doesn't suffer either way. And then there's density. Pound for pound, blueberries are packed with nutrition, store well when frozen, and fit perfectly into small gardens. When you factor in early production, low maintenance, repeat harvests, and long lifespan, blueberries quietly outperform many fruit trees without ever demanding center stage. Plant number 6, Jostaberry. Jostaberry is one of those plants that feels almost engineered for productivity. It's a cross between blackcurrant and gooseberry, and it takes the best traits of both while dropping many of the weaknesses. The result is a tough, vigorous bush that produces heavily without the fragility you often see in fruit trees. One of the biggest advantages of Jostaberry is how much fruit it produces relative to its size. The bush stays compact, but when fruiting season arrives, it loads itself with clusters. Instead of waiting years for a tree to mature, Jostaberry gets to work quickly and keeps improving with age. Every season builds on the last. Jostaberry also thrives where fruit trees struggle. Partial shade, cooler climates, and mixed plantings don't slow it down. This makes it perfect for food forests and layered gardens where trees would compete too aggressively. While fruit trees demand their own space, Jostaberry fits in and still delivers. Harvesting Jostaberries is efficient and forgiving. The fruit doesn't bruise easily, doesn't fall apart at ripeness, and doesn't demand perfect timing. You harvest when it's convenient, and the bush keeps producing. Over time, that ease of harvest translates into more food, actually making it into your kitchen. And that's where yield really matters. Plant number 7, currants, red or black. Currants are one of the most underestimated food plants you can grow, and that's exactly why they outperform fruit trees in the long run. These bushes don't waste energy growing tall trunks or thick branches that never feed you. They stay compact, dense, and extremely focused on fruit production. Once established, a currant bush becomes a reliable producer that shows up every single year without drama. What makes currants special is how early and consistently they fruit. While many fruit trees are still recovering from winter damage or late frosts, currants are already setting fruit. They don't mind cool weather, partial shade, or less than perfect conditions. That resilience means fewer failed seasons. And over time, fewer failures equal more total food than trees that only succeed when conditions are perfect. Currants also excel in tight spaces. You can tuck them along fences, edges, and between larger plants where fruit trees would never fit. Because they tolerate shade better than most fruiting plants, they work beautifully under taller trees or in food forest layers. Instead of competing for space, they cooperate and still produce heavily. And then there's harvest efficiency. Currants load their branches with clusters of berries that are easy to pick and easy to process. They freeze well, dry well, and turn into jams, juices, and preserves without fuss. When you compare how much usable food you actually bring into the kitchen versus how much space the plant takes, currants quietly outperform fruit trees year after year. So when people ask why their garden never feels productive enough, the problem usually isn't effort. It's design. Fruit trees look impressive, but they demand patience, space, and years of waiting for a short reward. Tiny bushes, on the other hand, play a different game. They fruit early, fruit often, and keep producing without asking for much in return. Here on Daily Plant Life, we focus on plants that earn their space. Plants that feed you consistently, protect your time, and build real food security, especially if you're working with a backyard, a small yard, or limited land. When you stack these bushes together, season after season, the results quietly surpass what most fruit trees ever deliver. If this video changed how you think about food production, make sure you subscribe to Daily Plant Life, because we're all about growing smarter, not bigger. And let me know in the comments which of these bushes you already grow, or which one you're planting next. Because once you start designing for yield instead of height, everything changes.